position on free speech?
Between 2002 and 2012, the only group whose income rose as fast as the total economy was the top 0.1%. 60% of all the campaign money comes from 0.08% of the people.
Thanks, Joe.
For several years we've been talking, and you have really, you're one congressman who's really stood up for fair campaign finance reforms. And tell us what we can do.
Thank you. I'll be brief because I'd like to get you back with your signs in front of the traffic. I want to thank you for coming out. I want to thank you not just for today, but for the ongoing effort to push back against the influence of big money on our politics and on our government. Unfortunately, the Supreme Court this morning, as you know, in the McCutcheon case, went further in the wrong direction. If you look at what the court has done with respect to the Voting Rights Act over the last period of time, and what they've done with decisions on money and politics, they're making it harder for everyday Americans to vote in elections, but they're making it easier for a small fraction of the wealthiest Americans to buy elections. So they're going in the wrong direction on all fronts. We've got to figure out a way to push back, and there's many ways to do that. There's better disclosure and transparency, so we know where this money is coming from. There's the effort to have a constitutional amendment that many of you are working on, so Congress can have the authority to limit the spending of outside groups and limit this court in terms of what it can do with cases like McCutcheon. But the other thing we got to do, and that we can do without worrying about what the Supreme Court will say, is we've got to create a different system for funding our campaigns that puts power back in the hands of everyday citizens. The way you can push back on the influence of Sean McCutcheon and Sheldon Adelson and others is to compete with them by having small donors and matching public funds come in and lift up candidates. If I and other members of Congress had the choice between going to Sean McCutcheon to get the funding for my campaign, knowing that I would be dependent on him and special interests and would lean in their direction when it came time to make public policy, or to turn to everyday citizens, to my constituents, to working people, and ask them to step up with a $25 contribution, knowing that matching funds would come in behind that and could lift my candidacy up, I would go in that direction every time. But we don't have a system like that right now. We don't have an option. And the Government by the People Act, which we introduced 7 weeks ago, would create that option. With a tax credit, a small tax credit for everyday citizens who make contributions to allow them to participate. With matching funds, it comes in at a 6-to-1 rate to amplify the voice of the small donors, and then extra dollars to help candidates in the home stretch of a campaign so they can keep their voice in the mix. That's the solution. Let's find a different place where candidates can go to power their campaigns. Let that place be everyday citizens, working people across this country who want government to answer to them and are tired of being left out, left on the sidelines with no voice. We can fix this. In 7 weeks, we've gathered over 400,000 citizen co-sponsors on online petitions across the country. If you Google Government by the People Act, you will find your way to one of those platforms, and we encourage you to do that. This is legislation that we can pass in Congress if we build a movement and momentum behind it. It's only going to happen with the involvement of people like yourselves coming together like you've done today and saying our voice does count. So thank you all very much for what you're doing.